Hi, this is David McCann for WebTNG. In this video, I'm going to take a look at oxygen. I decided a little while ago that I wanted to do a deep dive into oxygen and actually build a site from start to finish. I've looked at oxygen before, but in those cases, I was only interested in how oxygen works with custom post types. Now I wanted to see what was really involved in building a site. I want this video to be useful for new oxygen users. So I'm going to go through the steps pretty much from start to finish in building a site. In addition to this walkthrough of building a site with Oxygen, I have a couple of other Oxygen resources that I've just created. One shows the code snippets that I've used when building the Oxygen site. Another one walks through the pros and cons and gives my conclusions about Oxygen Builder overall. So if you're just interested in what I think, you might want to check out the other video. Or if you're interested in the code snippets I've used, then check out that post. Okay, let's get started. This is the Oxygen website, and I pointed out because they have a pretty extensive video library and knowledge base. So if you are building a site with Oxygen, this will be a place that you'll want to go to check it out. Something that comes with Oxygen are these design sets. There are quite a few of them in different niches, and one way of creating a site with Oxygen is to just install one of these kind of pre-made websites. You've seen these before, like with Astra or Cadence. Elementor has some. So that's one way to get started. However, I don't recommend that if you're trying to learn Oxygen. I decided instead this time that I was just going to build it from scratch, the header, the footer, everything. And in that way, hopefully learn more about Oxygen. But I'm pointing out this resource, these design sets, because that's another option if that's what you want to do. Right now, Oxygen is really cheap. When I first bought it, everything was $99. Now it's $169 for the Oxygen and the WooCommerce add-on. I think they have another add-on coming out, so if you haven't already bought it and you're interested, the longer you wait, the more it's going to cost. Alright, so now let's start building. Here's a website. I've called it Oxygen Test. It's a brand new install on localhost. Okay, and these are the steps I take. The first thing I do is I go in and I delete out these plugins that are installed by default. I go to themes and I choose a theme. So I'll update this one and then delete the others. Oxygen doesn't use the WordPress theme, but you're going to need to have one installed. I'm going to go ahead and update WordPress. Okay, so here we are. So, as I said, this is localhost. When I do this on a live site online, the next thing I do is I install backup and security plugins. After adding the backup and security plugins, the next thing I do is I go through the settings. Site title, the tagline, and set the time zone, the date time format, the day the week starts on, default post category. So I think uncategorized is horrible. And so one of the things I do is I just change this to general. Okay, so let's go back now to settings, and that's the default category. Then reading, I'm going to change this later to be a static home page, but for right now that's okay. Summary. And then I usually require that all comments have to be manually approved. Under media, you notice by default WordPress is going to create a small square thumbnail. Most people's featured images are not square, so that's totally useless. If you are going to have featured images that are not squared, you can turn this off. The way you do that is I think you just set it to 0 for both and it won't make them. Okay, and you can adjust these if you want, but the medium and large will make proportionally sized images. In my case, I think I might have square featured images, so I'll leave it, but I'm just mentioning that. Permalinks, I always set it to the post name for the pretty link. And now the next thing is to install Oxygen. I picked it from the download and now I install it and activate it. First thing you get when you activate a new Oxygen install is it asks you, do you want to start with a pre-made library? And those are the design sets we looked at. You can choose one of those, but I'm going for a blank install. So when you download WordPress, the latest version installs a 2021 theme. I'm just going to update that to get rid of the notice. Now that I've installed Oxygen, it gives you this admin menu. So the next thing I do is go through the admin menus and look at all the settings. Here we can change our mind and install a website from the design library. This is just a link to the templates here, and here's some help and support links and the link to the Facebook group, which is very useful. There are a lot of good people in the Facebook group who are helpful. Templates, this is where you are going to add a new template, and we're going to look at this pretty extensively. Then export and import. These are your settings and your global colors, your global styles. And so what you do is you just go in, copy everything here, then you go to another site and you'd paste it. If you want the global colors, you would click here to get those, click submit, and you would copy it from one site to another. And that's how you move your settings. Then here's the settings menu. You notice there are a lot of tabs here. You can go through the options here, exclude non-public post types from preview. Yep, that makes sense. Enable selector detector. This is kind of an internal to the Oxygen editor tool, so I'll turn that on. And then show advanced custom fields, cache Google fonts, if you're using IE10. Client control. This is to lock down access to the Oxygen editor. So right now it's only the admin has access. And the Oxygen editor, you can enter PHP there, so you really need to make sure that only trusted users have access to the editor. You can do it by role here, by individual user. And then Oxygen adds a meta box on the post types. And so you can hide that. For example, we don't need the Oxygen editor for these things or some kind of internal WordPress features, so I don't need it for those. Then security, like I said, with Oxygen you can actually input PHP, and so this option here checks to make sure that Oxygen shortcodes that are run were created by the site author by having a signature on them. And if you migrate a site from one place to another, you're going to need to come here and re-sign all the shortcodes. So that's for a security thing. These are the icon sets. It comes with Font Awesome and linear icons. And these are SVG icon set. And you can upload a new SVG icon set if you have one. This is for Adobe Typekit if you have a subscription to that. This is where you enter your Oxygen license. Then this is a place you're going to come back to over and over again while you're building your site. And this CSS caching and regenerate CSS cache, this is in the Oxygen templates. So if you make a change to your global styles, then you'll need to regenerate this cache to reflect that so your templates have the latest global styles. Then this bloat eliminator is kind of a convenience to disable things like emojis if you don't want them, or jQuery migrate, which people don't need anymore. It might already be gone. Or embeds. Some people don't like embeds or Google Fonts. And then library. These are the design sets I showed you on the Oxygen website. I'll show you where you can import those or sections from those into your templates if you want to use them. And if you buy a design set from somebody or subscribe to a website that offers those, then you'll need to enable this in order to be able to connect to those in your editor. And then if you wanted to create your own design set and share it with other people, or just be able to access it when you're building another website, you would check this box. Okay, so those are the settings, and that's what I do next is I go through the settings. Okay, and now we're ready to create a template. So I click on templates, add new template, and I'm going to call this one base template. Now, Oxygen templates are hierarchical. That means that they can inherit. You can start and kind of build them up, and they can inherit the features of other ones. So what we're going to do in the base template is we're going to create the header and footer, and that'll be the base. And then our page layout will be a little different than our post layout because we'll have a sidebar for posts. And then the archive layout will be a little different also. There's no template yet to inherit from because we're just starting. But once we have some templates, this will be a drop down here. And then note that there's template priority. If on a page more than one template could apply, you have priorities, so you give them a number, and the higher number takes priority. So you can assign a template to all post types, to post pages, and if you have custom post types, they're going to show up in the list here, reusable blocks, or you can apply it to different types of archives. All archives are taxonomy or post types or authors or dates. Okay, and then if there are custom post types, you'd be able to choose that or other. So front page, your blog page, your search results, your 404, inner content, or catch-all. Okay, so since this is my base, I'm going to have it be a catch-all. Before we leave this screen, there's something else here, which is shortcodes. There's nothing here because we haven't created the template yet, but once we do, Oxygen controls the layout of the template using shortcodes, and all of them would be listed here, and you could copy these, go and create another template and paste them in. That's one way to copy a template. So once you publish it, you get this nice Edit with Oxygen button. You don't just have to apply them to posts or pages or archives. You can create a partial template. For example, if you had an email sign-up form you wanted to use on multiple pages or multiple templates, you could create a partial template that you could reuse in multiple other templates. Okay, so when we edit with Oxygen, and you get this blank editor here, and this can be a little intimidating if you don't know what to do, if you haven't used Oxygen before. So let's quickly kind of walk through what these different buttons are, and then as we go along we'll use them and you'll see more thoroughly. When you click here, this is to add different elements, and an Oxygen element is like an Elementor widget or a Beaver Builder module. Okay, you can see like here's a section, here's a button, here's an image, and so on. Okay. They're basic ones. They're quote-unquote helpers, like the header builder, which we'll use, social icons, an icon box, pricing box, easy posts that we'll look at, slider, a modal, a toggle, and so on. Then there are some WordPress elements you can use. There's these pro menu or menu to add a menu to your, like we're going to do add a menu to our header, add a shortcode or shortcode wrapper, your comments and comments form, your login form, your search form. And there's dynamic data like title, content, date, categories, featured image, author. So these are things we'll use in creating our theme templates. They're widgets. We're familiar with the WordPress widgets, and all the widgets would show up here. And then sidebars, and we have no sidebars. Why? Because normally the sidebars are declared, created by the theme, and Oxygen disables the theme. So if we want a sidebar, we're going to have to create one, and I'll show you how I did it on my site and some other ways you could create a sidebar. Then there's the library, and here are the links to the design sets. These are ones just like we looked at on the Oxygen website. You know, when you scroll down, you can see there are 16 pages, there are different templates, 3 templates, and then there are all these sections or elements like headers and footers and heroes and titles and pricing and so on. Okay, but we're not using those. But there's a library. And then this is if we created some reusable parts, then they would be shown here. That's the element list here in those panels. You can hide that or show it. Then this here is where you choose what content you're going to be previewing. So here's Hello World sample page and whatnot. Over here is the structure. We'll be using this a lot. But basically what it is like a tree view of the layout of your page. And when you do that, it opens up a panel here, and so you'd have your tree layout. Then this is the history and the undo and redo. So that would show you your undo points, and if you made a mistake and you wanted to go back and it was listed here, then you could click to go back to that. Then here is where you manage settings, style sheets, and selectors. So this is what I'd say the next thing you would do in working with Oxygen is you'd go in and do these settings. And this is very much like the settings you would set normally with a theme in the customizer. So I recommend the next step on a new Oxygen site is you go and step through these panels and choose your settings. So I'll choose 1290 as the page width, and I don't need an overlay header. If you want animate on scroll options, they're there. And then you can add smooth scroll to hash links. You can enable that here. And then these are the editor settings, and we'll kind of see how these work here, but right now we don't have any items here. But there's a class suggestion list when you start to type a class name, how many it will show. And then this is interesting. This is what I was talking about with being kind of like the customizer. You can go in here and you can create color sets, and there's a global set, and you add colors. So you have to have a color palette in mind. They don't give you one to start with, although if you import one of those design sets, you'll get one. And so what I usually do is I get a starting color, and I'm going to choose an orange. So I'm going to start with an orange, paste in the hex code, and then you click add color and it's added. If you want to delete it, you click the trash can. So there are two steps. You enter it and then you have to add it. So you have to click this add button twice to get it to be saved. So now I have a starting color. How do I generate a palette? This is how I do it. I go to a website called Paleton, and I enter that hex code. Here's my color, and then I go here, and I've gotten several oranges and several blues, and so I just start copying these colors. Let's say I want this one as a light orange. Give it the name, paste in the hex code, add. Go back here, say take this one as the dark orange. I mean, you could take that one and that one instead, I guess, if you wanted. Go here, add it. Kind of the page background or header background. So I'll call this one blue, white. Paste it in, and then here when you click on the color dot, you get a palette here, and so I just kind of move the dot. Alright, so here's my color palette, and I can do the same for orange if I want a really, guess I should do that for orange also. So let's do an orange white. Okay, so there's my color palette, and I'm going to save that. Save as I go along. Now, these settings, even though we're in just the base template, these settings apply globally to all templates. And that's why you might need to regenerate the CSS, because say we save them here, we go into another template, we make a change, we want to regenerate these so it applies back to this original template also. There are our colors, then we go fonts, okay, and display font, that's the header. Text font, that's the text, the body. So I'm going to go with Roboto. And then headings, these are the sizes and the font weights. If you just set the H1, the other ones will kind of inherit and just kind of go down in size or whatever. I want the colors to use this dark blue. That's going to be the color of my headings. Okay. And then for body text, I like it to be 18 pixels, make it easy to read, and I kind of make it a little grayer. Okay, so there's my body text. If you want to style your link, you do that here. It's taking this as our accent color, so if you want your links to be that. Actually, before we go on, let's go back to our body text. Notice we kind of created a new color here. Let's click the globe here to save it as a global color. And we're going to call this the blue text. Okay, Okay, so that's how easy it is to add to your color palette. And I'm doing that because when we're looking at links, I want my text links to be that blue text color, but then when you hover over it, I want it to be a different color. Or I can just make it underlined, which I think is what I'll do. I'll just make it so it's underlined. Link wrapper is an oxygen element, so you can style that differently. And you can style the border radius of your buttons and the font weight of the button text. Okay, so I'm going to save that. And then you go width and breakpoints. So page width, I like it to be 1290. And then these are the oxygen breakpoints. And then sections and columns, and the default section padding, and the default column padding. I think this is a little much for me, so I'll make that 55 each. This is just like going through the settings in the customizer. And then if you want animate on scroll, you can add that. And then you have this smooth scrolling to hash links option. Okay, so I saved that. Kind of global styles have been added. And one thing, kind of pet peeve here with default oxygen, is it doesn't show me the name of the template I'm editing here. That would be a nice enhancement. And there are a lot of enhancements to the Oxygen interface added by third-party Oxygen add-ons. But I wanted to start out just learning the vanilla Oxygen. Then also under Manage, the next thing is Style Sheets. So you can add a style sheet. I know we're going to need one. This is global, applies to all templates. It's going to be site-wide. So I'll just call it the site style sheet. And you can put it in a folder if you want. Okay, that's style sheets, and then selectors. So we don't have any yet, but if we did, they would show up here, and you could enable or disable them here. And then you can leave and go to the WordPress admin or to the front end. This is the Oxygen editor interface. So let's start out and add our header. We're going to go to the header builder, and there's a header section just got added, or header row. You can stack your header rows for mobile. You can hide them. You have a background color. So I think I'm going to make the background color this very light blue. And then you have the height, which I'll maybe come back and adjust. You have sticky overlay. I'm not using those. Now I want to add a link wrapper, because this is where I'm going to put the site icon and title. And I want it when you click on the site icon, it comes back to the home page. So I'm going to go grab the URL to the home page and paste it in here. And be careful. See right there how I pasted that in? It kept the HTTP. When I pasted it in, it didn't delete out the old text. And that bit me because I got mixed content error. So that's kind of a little gotcha that you want to keep an eye on. So you want to delete that out and make sure that you don't have that. Then next, I want to add an image. Okay, and I'm going to upload a logo image. Go to the media library, browse, and I'll pause the video and upload the image. I made this one 500 by 500 pixels on purpose. Probably could have made a small one and a bigger one. The site here, I'm calling it Dynamic Toolbox. I want it to be a 50 by 50. Then the next thing I want to add is I want to add text. And again, you know, like I double click in here. It'd be nice if that deleted out that text. Anyway, so we'll call this WP Dynamic Toolbox. And we want the text color to be this color to match the logo. And we want to be bold. And we're going to go back to our link wrapper. And we want things to lay out horizontally. See how easy that was? And now I'm going to click on the logo, go to advanced, and I'm going to give it a little margin on the right. Maybe that's too much. There we go. And then I'm going to click on the text and I'm going to make it bigger. Okay, and then I'm going to click on the header builder again, the header row. This tells you where you are. These are like your breadcrumbs here. This is where you add conditional display or a link, or duplicate it or delete it. Here are your responsive controls to look at different page sizes. Here's your element ID, and you can add a class name to it here. What I want to do on this header row is go and add some padding, say 10 pixels to the top and bottom. Okay, so there's my logo and site title. I'll save that, and I'm going to go out to the admin. And you notice it tells us the global colors have changed, the global settings. So it's suggesting we regenerate that, and it did it. So we go look, and that's it. Notice there's no other content. There's no hello world or anything. We have to build the templates. We don't have a theme here, so we have to build these templates in order for any content to show. But what I'm going to do is go to menus, and I'm going to create a menu called main menu. And I'll add on here, put in the site URL, give it a link, a name of home, and add. Okay, and then another one called toolbox. Okay, I'll add that to my menu. Save the menu. There are no menu locations. Normally, with the theme declares the menu locations, so there aren't any here, but that doesn't matter. But while we're here, I'm going to create another one. I'm going to have a top bar. So I'm going to call this one the top menu. And I'm going to add one called About. And I'll add one called Contact. And save that. Okay, so now we have our menus. Let's go back to Oxygen template and continue work on the base template. Okay, so now I'm going to add a menu. I'm going to tell it which menu we want. We want the main menu, and we don't want it right here. So let's go to structure. This is the structure button, and we'll see that our header has 3 rows, left, center, right. We want it to go into the right, so I'm going to just move it down. So see, that was easy. I want there to be space between them, between the items. So I'm going to give some margin between the items. Let's say a little more than that. And then we're going to go back and go to typography. We'll make the default color orange again, and maybe make the font a little bolder. There's that. And then for hover and active, so when you hover over the text, we'll have the text change to this darker orange, and the background color change to this light orange. And we can add a bar at the bottom. I'm not going to set an active color, that's if you're on the page. But here's a transition duration, so we'll set it to like 0.4 or something. Let's see if that, so that's what's going to happen. I think we're going to need a little padding on that. So we'll go 7, 7, 4, 4. Kind of ugly there. Kind of a little too ugly for me. So let's go back and change this to be that it changes to blue. And the background color, when you hover, also changes to a light blue. How does that look? Nope. Let's have the hover color change to this white. Alright, so that's fine. So that's the main menu, and I'm going to save that. So now let's take a look at what happens when we go to different device sizes. That looks okay. So you're going to need to do this. You're going to need to check this stuff yourself. So here, when we go to, I think that was less than 992. So we want it to stack vertically. All right, so that looks okay. And then we can have the logo have a smaller size, and the text, the site name, have a smaller size also. Okay, So that looks okay. That's fine. And here that's going to need a little smaller yet for mobile. So again, we'll make the font size smaller and the logo a little smaller here also. Okay, so there's our mobile check, and we have the first row of our menu done. Now let's, like I said, I wanted to have a top bar. So let's go back to header builder here, add another row. Okay, and here's our new row. I want it to be above the other one. Okay, so when you're in this structure, you have these here. You can click here to delete something, or you can click here, you can duplicate it, you can wrap it in a div, or you can rename it. So I'm going to call this top header row, just for my own sanity to keep track of stuff. And I'll call this one main header row. Okay, so now this one, I want the background color of it to be this orange, and the height, I don't know, let's try 30, maybe a little bigger, 35. Okay, and now we're going to go back and we're going to add another menu. Okay, it put it in this place, but I want it under this one. And let's pick our top menu. We're going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to go ahead and do the colors. This time we want it to be this whitish color, the text. And we'll make the font size, like let's try 14 maybe. And we'll make the links uppercase. Let's go to advanced, size and spacing. Again, let's give some margin here between the items. We will again give some space here and a little bit of padding to these things. And then on our hover, when you hover over it, I want the color to be orange and the background color to be this really light orange. And let's see what that looks like. Okay, so that's okay. Give it a duration here, 0.4 a second. Okay, now let's go back and let's look at the site. Let's go our header builder again. Now that we've added this new top menu, let's check on the different device sizes. Okay, and that kind of looks okay at all the device sizes. So we're good with that. So there's our header done. Save that. Now let's add a footer. So we will go add, and we had a header builder, but you notice there was no footer builder. So we just use a section, put that in over here. I'm going to name that the footer section, and I keep these names in. So like here I did top header row, kept the word row in just to make it so I'm clear what I'm doing here. I don't need it to be this tall. Okay, whatever. I want the background of this section again to be the same light blue. I'm going to want the text color to be orange again. Now we need to add in our footer copyright. So see where it is under basics. Oh, here it is, code block and center aligned. Okay, so you notice there's this CSS and JavaScript and PHP and HTML. This applies just to this element, so it'll be used whenever this is, whereas the style sheet would apply site-wide. So if we want CSS just to go separately, we could do that. So I'm in my code element here, and I'm going to need the code for a copyright. So I Googled that and grabbed it. Online, copyright, here's the symbol. And then here's PHP code, echo the date, year, format. And then a link to WebTNG website. I give it a class, a footer link. Okay, and then click apply. And will note that this footer link, I want it to be orange and underline when you click on it. So I'm going to have to apply a style there. So I'm going to go to my style sheet. I'm going to add in my style footer link. I set the font size, and let's add the CSS for the footer link. And I don't know what color that is. Let's get the hex code for that. Save that. Okay, and so let's give that a hover option. And we're going to be, what is it, text decoration, underline. Okay, it's a little tall. Notice Oxygen gives you this ability just to drag, do your padding that way. Okay, so there's that, and you see why you do it. It adjusted it here, so we'll just make this. All right, so there's my header and footer. Now I want to have some content in there by default, and Oxygen has this helper called inner content. So I add that, go to the structure, and then place it. I want it to be in between the header and footer. All right, and you see it's the hello world. There's the hello world text. Looks good, right? Well, it's going all the way out to the edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a section, and I'm going to set the section to be the page width, and then I'm going to move this into the section. All right, so that looks a little better. Notice I don't have any title or anything like that. It's okay, we'll add this later, but let's just save this now, and let's go out to front end of the website, and there's our header and footer with our menus. Okay, so that's the base template created. Okay, now I want to build the templates for the post and pages, but before that I'm going to take a little sidetrack here, a little break, and add some code snippets, a little bit of customization. And for a long time I've used this plugin for that called Code Snippets. It's a really nice plugin that's well maintained and kept up to date. But I'm switching over to using this new one called Advanced Scripts. It's pretty reasonably priced, and it adds a few more features, so I've been switching over to this one. But the code snippets I'm going to use are on an article in the WebTNG website, and the link to that site for Advanced Scripts is in the text version of the post that matches this video on the WebTNG website. Alright, so I'm going to go and add some code snippets. And one of them I'm going to add is, you notice how on WordPress here, you go to the dashboard, you can go to themes, you can go to menus. Well, I rarely go to themes, but I go to the plugins page all the time. So I want to add a menu item here to go to plugins. Alright, so, but first let's add that Clean Scripts plugin. So I'm going to download and upload that. I'll pause the video while I do that. Okay, so now I install this, and I enter the license key, and let's activate it. This is freemium, which I'm not a huge fan of, but anyway, okay, so here we are into that interface, and like I said, the first thing I want to do is add this plugins link. So I'll give it a title, add plugins, link to the toolbar menu. And it's going to be PHP and everywhere, so that's all good. And now paste in the code for that. Okay, and save and activate it. Let's go here, and notice we now have a plugins link. Okay, if you go to the front end, you have that too. And let's go look at it. So that's working. Okay, the next one I want to add is I want to add a login, logout menu item here to this menu. And you can do that with a plugin, but I'm going to do it with a code snippet. That's just the way I like to roll on this. And if you have a plugin favorite that you use for that, then no problems, go with the plugin. Give this one, okay, a description, paste in my PHP code for this. I found this code snippet online, and the link for that is in the text version. And basically what we're doing is we're adding a filter to the menu. And this is a WordPress filter, okay, and then so here's my function. And I'm saying if the user is logged in, then add an item saying log out. This is an automatic link from WordPress to the logout URL. Or if they're not logged in, add a link to login. So I'm going to save and activate that. And let's go to the front end and check that out. And there's my login, logout menu. All right, awesome. That was easy. Like I said, the code for these is on my website in the accompanying the article. All right, now the next thing I want to do is we need to register a sidebar. Remember I was saying that there's no sidebar? Notice that widgets is usually on here, but there isn't one. There's no sidebar defined, so there are no widgets showing. So the next thing is we have to declare a sidebar, create one. And there's a couple of good plugins that do this real easily. One's by Brainstorm Force, and you'll find the link to that again on the accompanying article. Here is the code for that. So I'm registering a sidebar, and normally this is in the theme. Themes usually have this function in it. Oxygen disables the theme, so there isn't one, so we're just adding it back. Give it the name, main sidebar, shown on the right side of post in pages. And then you can add a before the widget, a class of widget, before the title, a class of title. It's H2. Okay, opening and closing tags for that. Okay, so I'm going to save and activate that. All right, now let's go to appearances, and all of a sudden, look, there are widgets option because we have a sidebar to put them in. And this main sidebar is going to show up in Oxygen now, and we can use it. Prior to creating that sidebar, there wasn't an option to add a sidebar inside our template. But in order for it to show up, we have to add a widget in to make it real. And so we'll just add, say, this meta widget. So now I think we're ready to go to Oxygen templates, and we're going to add a new template. And this template will be for our post single. So I'm going to call this post single template. And now we're going to inherit from the base template so that we get our header and footer. I'm going to give it a priority of 10, so it's a higher level priority. And I'm going to click on this single option and do posts. Okay, and publish that. And now we get the edit with icon option. Okay, and we want to have it show our post here. So let's start, and we will add, I think we have a section here, don't we? This is a section. So I think we will add, let's start with a div. In this div, we will have our content. All right, so a little problem here is by default, the Hello World post doesn't have a featured image, and I want to design for that. So I'm going to save this. Let's go back out to WordPress. I'm going to go to our Hello World, edit that, and add a featured image. And I'll pause the video and upload that. Okay, and so I'll add this as the featured image there. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to add a little more text in. So we have a little more content. All right, and save that and edit our single post template. Okay, and for this one, I want to have 2 columns. So what I'm going to do is add now columns and have 2 columns. This one is, I'll make at 30%. Okay, and this one automatically adjusts to 70%. Then I'm going to move this inner content into this one. All right, and I'm going to rename this to left content div. And I'm going to rename that one to right content div. All right. So this will hold a sidebar here. Rename these. Anyway, so I want to give them names so it's easier to know what I mean. Main container div. Now here I want to start getting the rest of my content in, so let's go to WordPress helpers and dynamic data, and I want to add title, and we're going to move that up over inner content. Okay, hello world, and then I want to add also dynamic content featured image, and we'll move that up above the heading. We're going to rename that to featured image and rename this one to page title. All right. And then when we're here, you notice they have these IDs and they don't really help us. If we're on the front end and need to style this, I think it might be worth giving some of these elements like this that are pretty essential a clearer name. All right. And this one, the heading, we're going to call this, it's called here headline, we're going to call it page title. And this one, no option to give that one a name. All right, and then we need to do the post meta here, and we need to add our comments section. So let's add a div for our post meta. We're going to make the width of it 90%, and then inside that div we'll add some columns. Here's that div here. Let's rename that to post meta div, and then we're going to put these columns inside of that div. Okay, let's try dragging them this way. There we go. Alright, and how many do we need? Let's see, I think we need date, we need author, and we need comments. So let's do 3. Into this one we will add a text, and we will delete that text, and we're going to go back to our WordPress dynamic data. Here's date. So it's got the date, and you see it add that short code, so we'll add published on. And then we have next, we're going to add another text box. And this one will say, notice it's a little hard to type into there, by space. And then we want to go add the author. So we'll go back to dynamic data and say author. Okay. And then here we will add number of comments. And notice that that isn't an option in our dynamic data. There is another way to get dynamic data. Oxygen has a nice helper. Let's add a text box here, and we'll clear that out. And notice up here when you're working in a text box, there's this formatting toolbar here. There's also this option to insert data. And here we have post items, information about the featured image, the author, current user, the site information, archive information, and then this advanced PHP function return value. So that's very powerful there. But right here they have this comments number option. And if you click on that, then you fill in what you want it to say for the different values. So if there's no comments, we want to say no comments. If there's one comment, we want it to say one comment. And if there are multiple comments, then we use this, and then we would like it to be a link, and you can insert. So that's a good way to do it, and that's something to keep in mind about this dynamic data option that they have for the text box. Now I have another way I want to get the post meta, so I'm just going to delete this for now, and then we'll come back to it later and add the post meta another way. Right now let's go to this div that's holding our post meta, and we want our vertical alignment centered, and let's go to typography, and let's make the font size a little smaller. Okay, so that makes the font size smaller. And then this one, we want the elements horizontal. This one we want the elements horizontal. This one we want the elements horizontal, even though there's nothing in there. Okay, so there's that. And now let's add the comment input boxes. So let's find those. Here's the comment form and the comment list. So I'm going to add the comment form, and I'm going to give it some margin there, maybe even a little more than that. Okay, so it's under the content. And then I want to add the comment list of comments, and there's that one. Okay, and here's this button. Let's make the text white and the border color orange and the background color orange, text color. So there's our comment form, and I'm going to save that. Now let's work on getting the sidebar in. So I've got the space for it. Let's go back, WordPress sidebars, and here's our main sidebar that we created with the code snippet. So I add that, and it's not, I want it to take up more space there. So I think we're going to need to add some styles to that, but we got our sidebar in. So let's go to advanced and size and spacing, and we'll give this a width of 100%. Alright, so that looks better. And now we've got this list bullet there. I want to get rid of that. Do some other things maybe. A lot of padding there. So let's get rid of the extra padding if we can. And what else? Let's go to the style sheet, and let's add some styles. So I put this together, I'm just pasting it in here. I say I want a list style of none, and adjusted the margin and padding and the size of the widget title. So let's look at that now. I gave it a name of right sidebar. What did I call this in our structure here? Go to this div. I'm going to give it a class called right sidebar, and my styles applied. That's a start. Let's save this. Go check it out on the front end. Okay, so this is looking okay. We could have maybe a little more padding inside of there. And this is a little close up top to the featured image. But otherwise this looks pretty good. So this is our first stab at a post single. We're going to put a little bit of margin between the featured image and the post title. Try to add some more padding around here. But one thing I wanted to show you is that anytime we want to add the styles, we have to go back into the template. There's no editing the style sheet directly. So that's a little bit clunky. So here we'll give this a margin. Okay. And then in here, our sidebar, I'll give that some padding actually. Let's try what happens if I give it 5. Nope. That is not what we want. let's go try the style sheet. Just go right sidebar. Is that going to do anything for me? Not really. What I want is in this element here, inside of there, where we have our background color. So let's see. Let's try padding 20. Let's make it top, and then left and right. Let's make that 20 pixels, and then bottom, let's make that 10 again. See how that looks. Okay, that's a little bit better. We did that already. Let's go back, front end. Alright, that's a little better. So there's our post single. We still need the comment number added in here, and we're going to try to grab that code in a minute when we make the archive. We'll get that from, I've seen already where it has it into the easy posts. We can grab that code. So let's make the archive for posts. Go back to the dashboard, Oxygen templates, add new, call this post archive. We're going to inherit from, well, alright, so here's the thing now, is I'd like this one to have a sidebar. So, and I don't want to go through the hassle of creating that sidebar again. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go install a plugin to duplicate the single, and I'll show you how that's worked for me. Yoast bought this recently, but you can see it's got 3 million active installs. And that's going to allow us to, let's see, I guess we're going to have to go into the settings, and we want to apply this to templates. Now let's go, and there we go. So I'm going to copy this, let's trash that one. Okay, so I'm going to copy this to a new draft. This I'm going to call post archive template. And I've seen sometimes this tool doesn't work, in which case you have to use the shortcodes thing where you copy out all the shortcodes. Okay, I'm not going to apply it to single posts. Instead, I'm applying it to, we're going to say all archives here. And this will have the same template hierarchy of 10. So let's publish that, edit with Oxygen. Here's our sidebar, but now instead of the featured image, the title, the post meta, and the content, and the comments stuff, we're going to get rid of that from the left div. So we're deleting out the featured image, we're deleting out the title, the post meta div, the inner content, comments form, the comment, and we're going to add this really cool, nice element they have, Oxygen has, called Easy Posts. Okay, and I'll show you why I like that in a minute. But first, let's see. So they've got some presets here of different types, and I like the list kind of preset instead of a grid, a list with the image on the left. So I like the standard kind of list, but I want the title and meta to go below the featured image. Just real quick to show you what this Easy Posts has. If you've got the query here, so it's using the default WP query, but you can customize it if you want to set the post type, filtering, order, count, and whatnot. Or you can create a manual query here. Alright. It's got styles, so you can style the title, the meta, the content, the read more, and do some responsive options here. And then it's got templates, and there's the PHP part and the CSS part. And this is a cool thing that I really like. So here we have our template, and this is the post meta here. The title and the post meta, and then it has underneath that the post thumbnail. So I'm going to copy that and remove it. Then I'm going to just go in here and paste it under the featured image. And then there's an apply code thing. Voila. So that was easy. And here's our comment option here. Remember I said we were going to get that? And so we go into the post meta, and here's that code for that. I'll expand the editor here. Here's the code for that. Okay, so I'm going to grab that and copy it and put it in my code editor so I can use it later when we go back and edit the post single. Alright, so now let's save that and let's go to the front end, and I think we need to go to, so here now it's showing that's I think the sample page. So that isn't what we want. Let's go back to Oxygen templates, this post archive, and let's show it also, use it for these as well as for all archives. Hopefully that's going to do what we need. Bingo. Okay, great. And if we had more posts, they would show down here. It would just keep stacking them there. So we have a little extra space at the top here. And yeah, so there's some extra space here we need to get rid of. So that lines up. But otherwise, this looks good. Let's see if we click on here. We are now in the Hello World post. So that's good. And if we click on this, here it's got a link to the comment. Click on that. That did not work. We want it to go down to here. Let's go back and see what is this. This is linking to Hello World and then pound comments. So we'll need to add like a bookmark in the page for that. So let's figure out how to do that. And we'll edit the post single and add our comment meta in there also. Well, let's see. Before we go into there, let's finish this up and remove that extra space. So first let's go back to templates. And post archive, edit with Oxygen. Okay, so there's that extra space here. And what happens here if we set this to 0? Oh. How about this one? How about our left content div? Set that to 0. Okay, so I think that took care of that issue. Save and go back to the front end. Alright, so that took care of that issue. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this post meta and use it in the post single. So let's go back and edit this and grab that post meta bit and edit with Oxygen. Alright, and then we go to our template, our PHP template, and we're going to grab this post meta block here and just copy that. And now let's go back to the admin. We're not making any changes. Go to templates, go to single post template, edit with Oxygen. Okay, inside of here now, instead of these divs, I'm going to go to this outer div, and I'm just going to actually delete the columns from inside there. Delete that all out. And inside this div, I'm going to add a code block. And I'm going to add that post meta that I grabbed from the archive. And let's go look at that. Alright, so here on this code block, size and spacing, let's give it a width of 100%. And let's see if we can get that to those items in there. Alright, I'm going to try grabbing the CSS for this from the post style sheet. So hang on to your hat. Go out to the front end, to home, and do view page, do inspect, network, sources. Oh, let's try plugins, Oxygen, uploads, universal. I think this is it maybe. And we're looking for post meta. I'm going to guess that's near the end because we just added that. There's our CSS. Oh wait, here's the archive template. Pretty print that. Here we go. Okay. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to go back into style sheet and we're going to the post single. Style sheet. And let's paste in that stuff I got. And there's a div here, so I'm just going to say div. And that seemed to have done it there. Let's get rid of this. Get rid of this. Collapse the editor. Okay, it's not showing author, but maybe author doesn't exist in this context yet. Let's save this and go to the front end. Alright, so there's my post meta. The font got pretty small there, so I'm going to need to go fix that. Should have looked at it a little more carefully after I pasted it in to see what I was doing. Okay, I'm going to just give it a font size of 14px. 14, or should I do 16? Let's try 14. And this link to fix the bookmark is pretty easy. What you do is you just give it the ID instead of the random one, you give it comments, and then that matches the bookmark in the link to the comment section. So I'm just going to save this and then we can go to the front. Alright, I'm going to say that's okay. So there's our post single and we have our blog archive. Oh, button here should be orange. So let's go and edit that. And now we go into this easy posts, read more, and we want button color orange, text color this light blue. Yes, that's good. If we want to have a hover, we could have text color orange and button color light orange. How does that look? Not so great. So I think we'd go, when you hover, we have the text color be white. How does that look? Okay. Alright, we'll go with that. So we'll save and go back to the front end. And here's our post archive and our post single. Okay, so I just want to make a couple of more templates. I think this will be pretty quick. Maybe one for pages that don't have a featured image, say, or post meta or comment area. So let's do that. Oxygen templates, and I'm going to take the post single and I'm going to create a new draft, and this one we'll call it page single, and this will be for pages. And we will publish that, edit it with Oxygen. Alright, and then we can now get rid of some things like you don't usually have the post meta on pages, so we'll delete that. And we don't usually have a featured image on pages, so we'll delete that. And we don't usually have a comment form pages, so we'll delete that. Or a comment list. So we'll delete that. Okay, so that was pretty easy. We'll save that. Now if we wanted to, we could do the same thing here again. This time, like if we didn't want to have a sidebar, we could make a full page layout template, and we could make one, without a header and footer or something like that for landing pages. But I don't think we need to do that here. Let's exit out now. We'll go to the front end. There's the sample page, and I think we got spacing at the top, unfortunately, so let's go back and get that taken care of. I mean, this is a process you go through, I guess. I think I could probably have the page open in another frame, maybe. So let's see here what we've got. That may do it. Okay, so that looks pretty good. All right, now I've got an about, a contact page. Here you notice that it doesn't exist. We should probably create a 404 page. Would be something that we would create. But I think that if we go here, we just create a contact us, and we add a contact form in there. And we add an about. And let's see, I think we had one called Toolbox. Alright, so we have our placeholder pages. See, so theirs seems problematic. So, gonna need to work on our page template there. Let's go back. Interesting that it looks good here, but not on the front end. Let's see. So, let's go to our structure, our main content. I believe we had the main content was 100%. So then on our columns, this is 70% and that's 30%. And let's go to the sample and just check this on different device sizes, so that's good. Alright, so I'm going to save that. Let's go to the front again. I'm going to keep that open there. There, that's better. Okay, one thing I wanted to point out really quickly is let's look at the page in the editor. And down here, even though we've assigned a single page template, you can choose different templates here. And so you could create one, say, for a landing page or that had some special content. So there is flexibility. Just because you assign a template doesn't mean you can't override it and manually assign a different one on a per page basis. So there's our basic framework. This is kind of about where you'd be if you installed a theme and went through the customizer. So one last thing I want to do is what I did do on this new site I created. I got kind of excited and I created a new post and I added some content. Let's add a featured image. I'm just going to use this one again. And let's embed a video. I'll grab one of my videos here and copy the embed code. And let's embed that in. Okay, and update that. Now let's go view the post. So that looks pretty good. Okay, and now let's try putting something else here in the sidebar, some other content. So we'll add a text widget. I'll upload something and I'll just pause the video while I upload it. Okay, and let's go check that out. Look at that again in the inspector. Here's a problem here. See how that overflowed from the container. Let's take a look here. See, that's given us a white space there. So apparently that's a known issue and you need to add some code. So let's see, I guess I can go back into, or I'm still in here, go to style sheets, and let's see if we can add some code to fix that. So I've gotten some code. There are a couple of articles on this and I'll have links to them in the text version. But basically, these are some things that your theme would probably have in it. And so you're going to have to add that yourself because you don't have a theme. You might have to do a little Googling or know a little CSS to get that done. So let me get that and we'll add it. And we'll paste it in there and save it. Let's go out to the admin and let's go to Oxygen settings and regenerate the CSS here. Okay, now let's take a look at this. Okay, so we added some code to make the image more responsive. Some of these testing things like finding the comment link issue and things like this image. So I just want to give a shout out to a couple of members in the Dynamic WordPress group, Sridhar Kadakam and Mohammed Akram, who were very kind and poked around the site and found a few things like the comments link not going to the comments area, which I fixed, and the issue with the white space and the images not being set to auto resize there. So as I said in the beginning, I do have another post and video where I go into more depth on the pros and cons of using Oxygen. Having followed along in this process, I think you'll be able to appreciate what I'm saying in that video. But I want to say my overall impression of Oxygen is that it's a very powerful tool. There's a great deal of flexibility. You have a lot of control. But just like with any power tool, there's also a lot of responsibility. But you have to go through and do the checks and testing that a theme developer would normally do to make sure you don't end up with issues like we had with the sidebar with this image. So anyway, that's my walkthrough of creating the basic site with Oxygen. There's a text version available on the WebTNG website that includes the links to the resources that were mentioned in the video, along with other walkthroughs and tutorials. Hope you found this video useful. Thank you for watching.